I stood in the Ritz-Carlton lobby, fixing my silk veil in a huge mirror. The room smelled like expensive perfume, and rich guests laughed with champagne in hand. Then the side door flew open. My father, Elias, walked in with a limp. His suit was old and worn, and a faded medal sat on his chest. He looked out of place, like dirt on clean glass. My heart dropped. People went quiet, then started to giggle. My mother-in-law, Elise, covered her nose and waved at security like my father was nothing. Julian gripped my hand and whispered, "Don't look, Amara. They'll remove him. Don't let him ruin our big day." I looked at my dad, standing there with his head down. Then I looked at Julian. I waited for him to defend me. He didn't. Marco, Julian's brother, stepped forward with a drink and a cruel smile. "Hey, old man," he said loud enough for everyone. "The soup kitchen is downtown. This is the Ritz, not a place for handouts." More laughter. My dad didn't fight back. He just held his cap tighter, trying to disappear. Elise snapped, "Where is security? Get this thing out before he touches her dress." Thing. I turned to Julian, hoping he'd finally do the right thing. Instead, he forced a laugh and said, "Mother's right. Marco, have staff take him out the back. Amara, smile. Don't embarrass me. I'll give him $500 to leave." That was it. He put my father's dignity on sale. I pulled my arm away and stared at the diamond ring on my finger. It suddenly felt like a chain. I slid it off, walked to Elise's champagne glass, and dropped the ring inside. Splash. "The wedding is over," I said, loud and clear. Julian's face turned red. He stepped forward and slapped me hard. The room froze. "You're crazy," he shouted. "After everything I bought you." I tasted blood, but I didn't cry. I held his stare. "You have money, Julian," I said calmly. "But you and your family are poor where it matters." Then I turned my back on him, walked straight to my father, and took his hand. "Let's go, Dad," I said. "Head up. We're leaving with honor." We walked out together. Later, we rode in his old 1998 Ford truck down the coast. My wedding dress felt tight and wrong. I ripped off my veil, rolled down the window, and threw it into the night. It flew away like the life I almost chose. My father finally spoke, voice shaking. "I'm sorry, Amara. I ruined your future." "You didn't ruin anything," I whispered. "You saved me." We reached our small cabin. Dad disappeared into his room and came back carrying a heavy metal ammo box. I sighed. "Dad, we don't need guns." He set it on the table. "This isn't a gun," he said. "It's what I've been preparing for 30 years. He opened it. Inside were documents, stock papers, deeds, bonds. Apple shares from 1985. Berkshire Hathaway from 1982. Property in Houston and Austin. My hands started to shake. "Is this real?" Dad took a sip of water like it was nothing. "When I came back from Vietnam, I didn't waste money. I invested. I lived simple on purpose. I wanted you to grow strong, not spoiled." He tapped the box. "Today, they judged us by our clothes. They tried to buy our honor with $500. He looked me in the eyes. "The value in this box is about $1.2 billion. I couldn't breathe. "The banks that hold Ellington's debt," he said. "I own a big piece of them." He pushed the box toward me. "This is yours now. You have the courage. Now you have the power." Dad stood there, waiting. He wasn't telling me to waste that money on vacations. He was telling me to fight back. I stared at the papers in the box and remembered everything. Elise calling my dad a creature, Julian looking away, Marco laughing. I wiped my face, stood up straight, and said, "Sir, mission accepted." The next morning I woke at 4:30 like I used to in the army. I didn't fall apart. I got organized. I cleared the kitchen table and turned it into a planning desk. On a whiteboard I wrote Ellington Corporation, then circled the names, Brantley, Elise, Julian, Marcus. Dad sat nearby with coffee, calm and focused. "We need a fake name," I said. "Vanguard Holdings," Dad replied. "Anonymous. Delaware." Perfect. I didn't want to hurt innocent workers. I wanted a clean strike, cut off the people at the top. So I called my old contacts. Miller, a private investigator. Sarah, a forensic accountant who hated corruption. I told them, dig up everything. Where's the dirty money? What are they hiding? 2 days later, Sarah sent a report that made my stomach twist. Brantley's Veterans Charity was a show. Most donations paid for fancy dinners, flights, and fees. Almost nothing reached veterans. Dad read it and went quiet. Then he said, "This isn't just revenge. This is disrespect. You have permission. Go." Phase 1 started fast. Through Vanguard, we began buying their bad debt and weak loans. Then we sent the charity audit to the press. The story exploded. The company's stock crashed. Investors panicked. Then Miller brought the biggest break. Their longtime housekeeper, Clara, had been fired and dumped with nothing. I met her at a late-night diner. She was scared, angry, and tired. She told me Brantley kept a hidden safe, and she even gave me the code. Then she slid a USB drive across the table and whispered that Marcos recorded sick things, proof he was more than a bully. I paid Clara what she was owed, enough to leave town safely and start over. Then we hit phase 2. More evidence went public. The internet turned against the Ellingtons. Sponsors ran. Banks pulled credit. Contracts got cancelled. By the afternoon, the company was bleeding. Phase 3 was the finish. When the stock dropped to the floor, Vanguard stopped attacking and started buying. We bought shares cheap. We bought debt cheaper. By market close, Vanguard owned 51% of Ellington Corporation. Control. I shut the laptop and looked at Dad. The house was quiet. Not the quiet of fear. The quiet of victory. He lifted his head and looked at me like a soldier again, steady, awake, and fully present. "All clear, Captain," he said. "The area is safe. Now we take back the command post." I didn't answer with words at first. I just nodded, because my throat felt tight. Then I picked up my phone and called the Ellington Corporation board office. A woman answered, trying to sound confident. I could hear the fear hiding under her polite tone. "This is Vanguard Holdings," I said, calm and cold. "Schedule an emergency shareholder meeting for 9 a.m. tomorrow. The majority owners will attend." There was a pause. A small shake in her breath. "Yes, she whispered. Who should I say is coming?" I allowed myself a tiny smile. Small, but sharp. "Tell them," I said, "that payday has arrived." The next morning, the elevator carried us up and up, until it chimed at the 50th floor. This floor used to feel like a throne room. Everything about it screamed power. Glass walls, bright lights, smooth marble, quiet hallways that swallowed footsteps. But today, the place felt different. It smelled like panic. I stepped out first, heels clicking on the floor like a countdown. I wasn't wearing white silk anymore. No veil. No fake smile. I wore a black suit cut clean and sharp. My hair was pulled back tight. I looked like someone who didn't come to beg. I came to take. My father walked beside me. Elias. Still in the same old suit from the thrift store. Still wearing his faded service cap. His limp was there, yes, but his shame was gone. He moved slowly, but his eyes were alert. He looked around the way he used to, like he was checking every corner, counting every door, reading the room like a map. We reached the boardroom doors. Heavy, dark wood, built to feel important. I pushed them open. They were all already there. Brantley sat at the head of the table, but he didn't look like a king anymore. His beard was rough, his eyes red and bloodshot. His expensive suit hung on him like it didn't fit right. Elise sat stiff and pale, clutching a handkerchief. Her lips were dry. Her eyes kept blinking too fast. Julian sat with his head in his hands like a boy who didn't know what to do. He looked smaller than I remembered. Marcos was bouncing his knee, eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal. His skin looked sweaty. His pupils were wide. He didn't look rich, he looked scared. The room went silent when we walked in. Not polite silence. Dead silence. Julian lifted his head first. His mouth opened like he wanted to speak, but no sound came out. "Amara," he finally said, shocked. "What are you doing here? Where's security?" In the corner, the corporate secretary stood up. Her name tag said Linda. Her hands trembled as she held her folder. "Mr. Ellington," she said, voice shaking, "may I introduce the representatives of Vanguard Holdings, the new majority owners of Ellington Corporation." Bradley's chair scraped back so hard it almost fell. He jumped to his feet, face turning dark with rage. "What?" he barked. This little brat owns my company? And that beggar, that crippled old beggar."
He didn't finish. Because I walked forward without blinking.
I reached the head of the table, stood right in front of him, and dropped a thick stack of documents onto the polished wood.
Thud. Stock records. Debt purchases. Ownership papers.
Voting rights. Everything clean, legal, and final. You called my father a beggar, I said, steady and clear. But that beggar just bought the chair you sit in.
He bought the roof over your head.
He bought your debt, your company, and your entire legacy. I leaned in close enough for Brantley to see my eyes. He owns you now. That truth hit the room like a punch. Elise made a small choking sound. Her hand fell from her face. She slumped back in her chair and fainted right there, like her body couldn't hold the shame.
Julian stared at me like I was someone he'd never met before.
Like the woman he tried to control was gone, and something stronger had taken her place. For the first time, they understood what they had done.
They didn't just insult a poor man.
They insulted a sleeping dragon. Marcus stood up too fast. No, he muttered, shaking his head. No, you ruined everything.
His hand went into his pocket.
Julian finally moved, backward.
Of course. He shrank in his chair.
Marcus, stop. Julian shouted, but he didn't stand.
He didn't step in front of me.
He didn't do anything except beg from a safe distance.
Marcus pulled out a box cutter and flicked it open.
The blade looked cheap and jagged, like it had been used before. He lunged at me, swinging toward my face. And I didn't scream. I didn't freeze. Training kicked in the way it always does, fast, clean, automatic. My body moved before my fear could even speak. I stepped to the side. My left hand caught his wrist. I twisted hard. A sharp snap filled the room. Marcus howled. The cutter fell from his hand. But I didn't stop there. I grabbed the back of his neck and drove his face down into the table. Crack. The sound was ugly. Real. He groaned, blood running from his nose onto the glossy wood. I held him there, his arm pinned behind his back, his body shaking. I leaned in and whispered so only he could hear. In the army, I said quietly, we remove threats. You're lucky I'm staying polite today. I shoved him away, and he slid to the floor like a dropped bag. The boardroom looked frozen. Brantley stood shaking, hands clenched. Julian was crying. Nobody helped Marcus. Nobody dared. I straightened my jacket. My hair didn't move. My voice didn't shake. I picked up the remote on the table and clicked the screen on. The wall monitor lit up with a live camera feed from the lobby downstairs. Men in blue jackets flooded the entrance. Federal agents. Brantley's breath caught. Here's the update, I said, pointing at the screen like I was giving a briefing. Then I looked at Brantley. They are downstairs with the audit from your charity, I said. They have the paperwork. They have the receipts. You stole money meant for veterans. You turned people's pain into a party fund. Brantley's knees looked weak. You're going to prison, I continued. For fraud. For theft. For lying to the public. Brantley sank into his chair and covered his face like a man watching his world end. Then I looked down at Marcus, still on the floor, holding his wrist and whining. And you, I said, cold as steel, are facing charges too. The police have the video. They have the files. You won't be protected by money this time. His eyes widened with real fear now. I glanced at Elise, still unconscious in her chair. And Elise, I added, your accounts are frozen. Your assets are locked. The life you built on cruelty is over. Finally, I turned to Julian. He looked up at me through tears, like a child who got lost in a store and finally found his mother. Amara, he choked. Please. I felt nothing. Not love. Not anger. Just a quiet emptiness. You didn't commit a crime, I said. You just chose fear. You chose comfort. You chose their approval over your own wife. I stepped closer and lowered my voice. Your punishment is simple, I said. You get to live with it. His face crumpled. I pointed at the door. Now get out of my company. The new security team came in, people loyal to paychecks, not last names. They grabbed Brantley. They dragged Marcus. Julian stumbled after them, broken. Their voices echoed down the hallway. For a moment, I thought I'd feel joy. But what I felt was quiet. Deep quiet. I stood in the empty boardroom and looked at my father. He gave me a slow nod, full of pride. The war part was done. We had won. That night, back at our small cabin, The victory looked nothing like a movie.
No fireworks. No champagne.
Just me and Dad on the old couch, eating a cheap frozen pepperoni pizza on paper plates. The TV light flickered over the room as the news played. The anchor spoke with a serious voice. Breaking news tonight, the fall of the Ellington dynasty. They showed Brantley in handcuffs outside the courthouse. He tried to hide his face with his suit jacket, but he couldn't hide his shoulders drooping.
He looked old, small, defeated. Then they showed Marcus. He wasn't hiding at all.
He was screaming, fighting, cursing as officers pushed him into the back of a police car. Then the last shot, the Ellington estate behind yellow police tape. Agents carried boxes of documents out of the front doors like they were cleaning out a rotten house. I looked at my father, expecting a smile. He just sighed and took another bite of pizza. "Look at him," he said softly, nodding at the screen where Brantley was being loaded into a van.
"Take away the suit. Take away the club membership.
What's left?" I watched Brantley's face, gray, scared, ashamed.
Dad was right. There wasn't glory in it. Just consequences. The fallout didn't end that night. It rolled on for weeks.
Elise, who used to act like poor people were poison, lost everything. The bank took the house.
The cars. The accounts.
The jewelry. We heard she was staying with a cousin, begging for help, selling luxury bags online just to pay lawyers. People who used to bow to her stopped answering her calls. Julian's life didn't collapse with handcuffs, but it collapsed in another way. The internet turned him into a joke. Someone grabbed a screenshot from his crying live video and made it a meme.
It spread everywhere. Strangers laughed at him in public. People whispered. Phones came out. He became the face of weakness. And that kind of shame doesn't wash off. My own phone wouldn't stop buzzing.
Old friends.
Distant relatives.
People who ignored me for years suddenly remembered my name.
"Hey.
Long time. So proud of you. Let's catch up. I always knew you were special."
It made me sick. Where were they when my father was being mocked?
Where were they when Julian raised his hand to me? I stared at my screen for a long time, then held the power button down.
The phone went black. The room went quiet again.
"It feels empty," I admitted. "We won.
But I don't feel happy. I just feel tired."
Dad put his warm hand on my shoulder, heavy and real.
It grounded me.
"That's because you're not meant to live on hate," he said. "You're a builder."
He looked at me with the same steady eyes as before.
"The tearing down is over," he said.
"We removed the rot. Now comes the hard part.
The rebuilding."
His words landed like a light in fog. He was right. Revenge was only the first step.
The real victory would be changing the company into something clean, something fair, something people could respect. I nodded slowly and took another bite of pizza. "Okay," I said. "Tomorrow, we start building." On Sunday morning, the sky was bright blue and sharp. Dad and I drove the old Ford truck to the National Cemetery.
No limo. No fancy clothes.
Just our best simple outfits and a small bouquet of white daisies on the dashboard. The cemetery was quiet in a special way, not empty, but full. Full of honor. Full of names. Full of sacrifice. We walked between long lines of white stones stretching over green hills. Dad moved with his limp, but his back was straight. He stopped under an old oak tree at a small stone. Margaret Simon, beloved wife and mother. Dad knelt down slowly, knees popping, and placed the daisies against the cold marble. He rested his hand on the stone and traced her name with his thumb like it was a prayer. And for the first time in days, I felt something gentle break through the hard part in my chest.
Not victory. Not anger. Just love.
And the quiet promise that we would live with honor, no matter how much money we had. "If your mother were here," Dad said with a tired little laugh, "she would have skinned you alive for the mess you made this week."
He tried to joke, but his eyes were wet.
The kind of wet that comes from holding too much inside for too long. "Your mom hated drama," he added softly. "She liked things simple." We were sitting in the National Cemetery under a big old tree. The leaves moved above us, whispering in the wind. The air smelled clean and quiet, like the whole place was asking us to lower our voices and breathe. I sat down beside him in the grass and pulled my knees up to my chest. For a moment we just listened to the wind and the faraway sound of footsteps on gravel. Dad reached into his pocket and pulled out his Silver Star medal. The ribbon was worn and frayed. The metal wasn't shiny anymore. It looked old, like it had been through storms. He rubbed it gently with the edge of his flannel shirt, like he was cleaning something precious. Then he cleared his throat. "Amara," he said, voice shaking a little, "I need to tell you something. I need to admit something." I turned toward him, waiting. He stared at the metal instead of my face. "I was scared," he whispered. I blinked. My father didn't say that word often. Scared. "When I made my first big money back in the 1980s, he continued, I didn't feel proud. I felt terrified." He swallowed hard. I looked around and I saw what money did to people. I saw it change them. I saw good men turn greedy. I saw kids grow up soft and cruel because life handed them everything. His jaw tightened. "Kids like Marcus." He took a slow breath, steadying himself. "Then I looked at you," he said. "My little girl." And I panicked. I thought, if you knew we were wealthy, you might lose your fire. You might lose your edge. His eyes finally met mine. Raw pain lived there. "I wanted you strong," he said. "I wanted steel in your spine. I wanted you to know how to stand up for yourself, even when you were alone. So I hid it." He paused, and the next words came out heavier. "I let you struggle. I let you join the army to pay for school. I let you think we had nothing." His voice broke. "I'm sorry I lied to you, Amara. I'm sorry I made life harder than it had to be." For a second, I didn't know what to say. My throat tightened. My chest felt too full. This man, who fixed his own shirts, drove an old truck, and let strangers judge him, had been carrying a secret mountain for decades. Not because he wanted power. Not because he wanted praise. Because he wanted to protect my soul. I reached for his hand. His skin was rough, worn by years of work and weather. His palm had calluses like thick paper. I pressed his hand against my cheek. And then I cried. "Dad," I said, voice shaking, "don't you dare apologize." I squeezed his hand tighter. "You gave me the best gift in the world," I whispered. "And it wasn't the money." I touched his chest gently, right over his heart. "It was this. It was how you live. It was your honesty. Your courage. Your discipline." My tears kept falling. "You taught me that a person's value isn't in their wallet," I said. "It's in their character. It's in how they treat people when no one is watching." Dad's face crumpled. He pulled me into a hard hug, tight and fierce, like he was trying to protect me from the whole world. There, among all those silent headstones, we cried together. Not the kind of crying that breaks you, the kind that heals you, the kind that releases years of secrets and pressure and fear. When we stood up, my chest felt sore, but lighter. That evening the cabin felt colder than usual. The sky was dark early, and the wind pushed against the windows. I built a fire in the stone fireplace and watched the flames catch the wood, licking up the logs with warm orange light. Then I went to my room and pulled down an old showbox from the top shelf of my closet. A label on it said, "Julian." I carried it to the living room and sat on the rug in front of the fire. The box felt heavier than it should have, like it was filled with old weight instead of paper. I opened the lid. Inside were pieces of a relationship that was already dead. Letters, photos, ticket stubs, little sweet things that used to feel important. I picked up a bundle of letters tied with a blue ribbon. Julian's handwriting was neat and careful, like he wanted to look perfect even on paper. I read a few lines. "Forever. Always. You're my world." I stared at the words and felt nothing but a dull disgust. Not because love notes are bad. Because I finally knew they were empty. I tossed the letters into the fire. The paper curled. The ribbon snapped. The words turned black and disappeared. Next were photos. Paris. Venice. Fancy dinners. Smiles. In every picture, I looked happy. But now I noticed what I couldn't see before. Julian wasn't really looking at me. He was looking at himself. At the camera. At the image he wanted the world to believe. I threw the photos in too. The glossy paper bubbled and melted. His perfect smile warped in the heat before it vanished. One by one, I fed the fire everything: movie stubs, dried flowers, the engagement party program, little souvenirs that used to feel like proof of love. The flames took it all without mercy. And with every item that burned, something inside me loosened. The anger in my stomach faded. The tightness in my chest softened. When the last piece turned to ash, I felt a strange peace settle over me, quiet and solid, like a door finally closing. I stood up, brushed ash from my hands, and whispered to the dying flames. "Goodbye, Julian."
Then I turned toward the kitchen. Dad was there, warming milk on the stove, making hot chocolate the way he always did. Simple, patient, steady. I walked to him, not carrying the past anymore. I felt light. I felt free. And for the first time in a long time, I felt ready for whatever came next. 3 weeks later, the downtown headquarters changed its face. The heavy brass letters that once spelled Ellington Corp were removed from the stone front. For a while, faint outlines remained, ghost marks of the old name. Then new letters were installed. Clean. Modern. Steel. Simon and Company. Next to it was a new logo, a torch. Not a crown. Not a lion. A torch, light in darkness. I walked through the glass doors, not as the woman they tried to shame, but as the chairwoman of the board. The lobby went quiet when people saw me. Receptionists froze. Security guards stood straighter. People watched with nervous eyes, like they expected me to storm in and start firing everyone. They had read the headlines. They knew how fast the old owners fell. They were waiting for the axe. But I didn't come to destroy. I came to lead. I called an all-hands meeting in the main atrium. Hundreds of employees gathered. Janitors, assistants, analysts, managers, standing shoulder to shoulder, holding coffee cups like shields. Whispers filled the air. I stepped up to the mezzanine and looked down at their faces. Tired faces. Worried faces. Faces that had been working hard while someone else cashed the reward. "Good morning," I said, loud enough to carry without a microphone. The room went silent. "I know you're scared," I continued. "You're wondering if your jobs are safe. You're wondering what happens now." I paused, letting the quiet hold. The answer is yes and no. Confusion rippled through the crowd. "Yes," I said, "some people are gone. The executives who helped steal from veterans, gone. The managers who looked away while corruption spread, gone. Security escorted them out this morning." A few gasps. A few murmurs. Then I lifted a thick binder in my hands. "But no," I said, "I am not here to punish the workers. I'm not here to hurt the people who kept this place running." I pointed toward them. "You are the backbone of this company," I said. "You are the foundation. And starting today, things will be different." I spoke clearly, using simple words, because people deserve truth without fancy packaging. "No more private jets," I said. "No more luxury expenses billed to the company. No more parties paid for by your overtime." I held the binder up again. "That money goes back into the business. Back into you." Then I gave them the new plan. Profit sharing for every employee. Better pay structures. Clear promotion paths. Strong ethics rules with real consequences. If the company wins, I told them, we all win. At first, the crowd stayed quiet, like they didn't trust it. Then a few people began to clap. The clapping spread. And I smiled, because for the first time, it felt like this building had a heartbeat again. "One more thing," I said, raising a hand. The room quieted. "We are creating the Elias Simon Scholarship Fund," I announced. "Full college tuition for the children of any employee who served in the armed forces." The applause exploded. Not polite claps. Real cheers. People hugged. Some wiped their eyes. Some laughed through relief like they had been holding their breath for years. And I understood something in that moment. This was the real victory. Not the takedown. The rebuild. While we rebuilt, the Ellingtons met their new reality. Elise, who once acted like poor people were dirty, ended up broke and powerless. No mansion. No driver. No spotlight. Just silence and small rooms and the kind of loneliness money can't fix. Marcus faced consequences too. Without his name and his money, he couldn't hide behind anything. And Julian? Julian didn't end up in handcuffs, but his life still became its own prison. The internet mocked him. People laughed at his crying video. Strangers recognized him, took photos, and whispered the same word again and again. Coward. One weekend, I hosted a party at our cabin. Not a gala. Not a show. A simple backyard barbecue. Clara was there, laughing like the heavy stone had been lifted from her chest. Sarah came with her kids. A few of Dad's old army friends sat on the porch, telling stories that got wilder with each drink. The air smelled like smoke and grilled ribs. Music played from a small speaker. Real laughter filled the trees. Dad sat at the picnic table with a paper plate of food and a soft smile on his face. He looked happy. Not rich happy. Safe happy. Loved happy. I leaned on the porch railing with a glass of iced tea and watched the scene. We didn't have a yacht. We didn't have a mansion in the Hamptons. But we had something better. Good people. Loyal hearts. Peace. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly wealthy. 2 months after the takeover, I was sitting on the porch of a quiet lake house we bought. Modest, calm, far from cameras. A book rested in my lap, but I wasn't reading. I was watching sunlight dance on the water, letting my mind finally be still. Then I saw someone at the gate. Julian. He wasn't in his sports car. He was on foot. His clothes were wrinkled. His face looked thinner. His eyes were hollow, like a man who hadn't slept in days. He didn't press the buzzer. He just held the gate bars, staring in like a prisoner. I stood up and walked down the gravel path slowly. My heart didn't race. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel love. I just felt nothing. When I reached the gate, I didn't open it. I looked at him through the iron bars. Amara, he rasped, tears rising fast. Please. I need to talk to you. You're trespassing, I said calmly. I know, he sobbed, wiping his nose with his sleeve. I don't have anyone left. I lost everything. My friends, my money, my reputation, even my mother won't speak to me. I'm all alone. He stared at me like I was his last door. And I stood there, quiet and steady, waiting to decide what kind of person I wanted to be next. He stared at me with desperate eyes. I messed up. I still love you. Please, give me one more chance. I'll change. I looked at him and remembered everything. How he laughed when my dad was embarrassed, and how his hand left a burning mark on my cheek. Julian, I said calmly, do you know what matters most in a fight? Not bravery. Not money. Loyalty. Knowing the person beside you won't run. I held his gaze. That day, you didn't protect me. You sided with them. You even tried to pay my pain away. He dropped to his knees. I was scared. Please forgive me. I felt no anger, only pity. I can't build a life with a man who abandons me, I said. You're out of my life for good. He cried out, but I turned away. Go, I said over my shoulder. Get a job. Learn to stand on your own. Maybe one day you'll find self-respect, but not with me. I walked back toward the house and down to the dock. Dad was there with a fishing rod, smiling at the sunset. Hey, Captain, he said. You missed it. I caught a big one. I sat beside him and leaned my head on his shoulder. I handled the problem, I whispered. Dad nodded like he already knew. I knew you would. We watched the water glow under the setting sun, and I realized the real win wasn't money or power. It was peace. It was us, still standing, still decent, still whole.